Hello everyone, my name is Saurabh Kumar and I would like to welcome you all to my video series where we are going to cover AWS training. This particular video is the first video for this series where we are going to talk some foundation level about it. Because before we begin about AWS training, before we talk about cloud computing, we have to be knowing some fundamental, and that's why this video is. So let's begin. First of all, before even we think broader about the cloud computing or something, let's start thinking from a small thing that what do you think, what are the basic parameter you look for when you buy a computer, maybe your laptop, maybe a computer for your home, or maybe for your office. So basically, these are the things which we take care of. We look for CPU, like everybody is having some special, purpose or use. What for they are buying the laptop. Accordingly, they choose which type of CPU they are going to have it. Maybe somebody would like to have Core i3, somebody would like to have i5, i7, or i9, depending on the paying capacity as well as the workload, how much task you are having to do on your laptop or on your computer. Second thing comes always in mind that the RAM, because RAM is the one which store the running process of your computer, so it has to be a little bit bigger if you are performing multiple tasks at a time, or if you are doing you are running any application which require a lot of RAM size. So on the basis of that you can choose, you can have a PC with 4 GB RAM, you can have a PC with 8 GB RAM, you can have a PC with 16 GB RAM, depending on your again requirement. And then we look for a storage. This is the third things which generally look for. So your storage, generally when you buy nowadays a laptop, they generally come with either 500 GB or either 1 TB of storage. Then again, depending on the operating system, if you are a Windows user, you will be looking for a Windows operating system, which can be either Windows 8, Windows 10. Then if you are a Linux user, you will be looking for Linux operating system or Ubuntu operating system there. Or if you are buying an Apple laptop or a computer, obviously you are going to get a Mac operating system there. So these are the basic things which we look for when we buy a simple computer, not a server. But what if you are looking to buy a server computer? What are the things you are going to see there? So let's see here. When we are planning to buy a server, as per its name, it is a server. It's going to provide services to others computers in your network environment. Meaning that maybe you can have a DHCP server which will be offering IP to everybody in your network. Maybe you have a DNS server which is going to help resolving name to IP and IP to name to all other computer in your network. So maybe you have file server which is holding or which is storing the files and offering to other client computer. So there are different types of server computer are, but when we talk about buying a hardware server, meaning that we are looking for a computer with some specific configuration, such as we may look for a CPU. Generally server computer, when you buy, they come with the Xeon series processor. It can be quad core, it can be octa core. Then when we talk about RAM, obviously the server is going to have a lot of tasks to do. So it will be coming with the RAM size something like 16 GB, 32 GB, 64 GB, 96 GB, 128 GB, or even higher than that. Then you can see here the storage. When you buy a server computer, the storage looks like, in this diagram it looks like funny, because when we discuss about the normal computer, we were talking about 500 GB or 1 TB. But when we are discussing about a server computer generally comes with this much storage only, 80 GB, 160 GB, or 250 GB, which looks very small. The reason behind it is that generally those all manufacturer who is manufacturing or who is providing the server, their goal is that this storage will be only used to store the operating system of the machine. It is not going to be storing any kind of file or data or anything else. So this storage, whatever is inside the server, it's only recommended to store the operating system. That's why the size is 80 GB, 160 GB, 250 GB, like that. Because server generally works with the separate storage device, like you can have sandbox, you can have NAS, something like that. So you don't need too much internal hard disk in your server computer. Something else we have to take care about when we are talking about a server computer, that every server computer comes with a special type of RAM which is called as a AECC. Why it is a special? Because it is having a function of advanced error code correction, meaning that whenever any RAM gets faulty or something, it will be giving you a kind of indication, or it will be giving you an alert as well, and you will be able to make them replace. So that's why the another feature is there, that is hot swappable. Hot swappable means RAM for a server is generally having a function of hot swapping. Hot swapping means when your server is running, at the same time you will be able to replace any faulty RAM, or you can say you can remove any RAM, or you can add any RAM there without turning off your computer. That's the good thing about hot swap function is. Because when you have a server running and providing a service for your customer or your clients, you would not like to turn off your server even for a second. So in that scenario, whenever, if maybe your RAM is getting faulty, or maybe you need to replace it, or maybe you just want to add some more RAM, so in that scenario you will be having a option to add the RAM or remove the RAM at very time when your system is still running, because it support hot swapping function. Another point about the server computer is, all the server computer generally they have some special kind of software running on it. Like most of the server are having IPMI, which is called as a intelligent platform management interface. What does it mean? What does it do actually? That intelligent platform management interface, this software generally help you to check or maybe see the condition of RAM, hard disk, or even processor running in your machine. So what will happen actually, that in case maybe you have four cards of RAM of 2 GB, 2 GB, 2 GB, or maybe you have four card of RAM of each are 4 GB. So total you have 16 GB. Out of that 16 GB, maybe if any one card is faulty, so total you will remain with only 12 GB. Now which a specific card is faulty, that is hard time. Physically when you go and open the server computer, you are not going to find any difference that which three are okay and which one is faulty. So in that scenario, generally this software is going to help you. It is going to tell you which slot card is having a problem, and you will be getting a simple button there near to the memory card slot. There will be a kind of yellowish, or you can say orange kind of color of a button. So you will just press that button, and then after that you will be able to unplug that RAM, you will be able to remove that RAM, and you can bring a new RAM on behalf of that, and you can shift it there. So that's how you can troubleshoot your RAM, or you can say you can replace your RAM while your server is still running. Here is one more point, that if you are buying a HP server, generally it comes with its own software known as OA. That means it is a onboard administrator, but it does the same function as I explained you about the IPMI. So these are the things which we look for when we buy a server computer. So might you have understood how the difference is between a normal computer which we use for a general purpose, or maybe our laptop, versus a server computer which companies are using for making it as a server computer. Now next point comes that when we talk about a data center, what is data center is, and what generally it contains. Data center, if I explain you in a layman language, that it's a place where you have a group of multiple computer, and you are running multiple different services on different computer to provide services to others. So that data center is going to have what kind of things? So first of all, every center is actually relying on or working on three components. Those three components are compute, network, and storage. These are the three major component of any data center we have. So what happens generally, that what we generally get from a data center, a service of a server or a service of a computer. So that service of a computer require three things: compute, network, and storage. So generally compute we get with the help of any of the server there. Maybe like for example, we have very many server in our company, maybe in data center. So we have one server, we have another server, we have another server. All these servers are obviously going to have some CPU and RAM in it. So whenever we execute any application, or whenever we run any service, that service occupy, or that service uses RAM and CPU from this server, and that is called as a compute. So compute power comes from the server computer which you are having in your data center. Second thing comes that the network, how they are connected. So obviously network will be coming from your network devices. Maybe this all servers are connected to a switch, then switch is connected to a router. So these devices like switch or router, they provides the network to the data center. And the third major things come as a storage, because we have just talked about that this server computer which we buy generally comes with a very small storage inside of it. It is just 80 GB or 160 GB. So because of that we need a separate storage system. Maybe we can use a SAN, we can use NAS, something like that. So that is a separate storage. So storage we get from SAN or NAS. Compute, which is meaning that CPU plus RAM we get from the server computer, and the network we get from the network devices such as switch and router. These are the three major component of data center has. But apart of that we also have cooling system and power supply, because there are many number of devices, or you have very many server, you have router, switches, firewall, you have the sandbox, you may have UPS system to provide the uninterrupted power supply. So that is again needed by the data center, and you need a cooling system for them. Proper cooling system has to be there to maintain the temperature in the data center room. Next thing is we need some monitoring software, because if you are running multiple server and services, you need some monitoring software. So we use generally Nagios, OpenMNS, Snort, VMC. These are the some example I am giving you for the monitoring software. Then we have obviously enclosure or a rack to keep this all server in a one place, to make them in a proper order, or to keep them in a safe way. We need a rack there, which we are again going to discuss in this video itself. And then obviously to maintain this all things, what we need is, we need, or our data center needs, a skilled manpower like you people. So what is going to happen, that everything, this computer, switches, router, sandbox, power supply, everything has to be maintained. And to maintain it we need somebody who is having a proper skill on it, who is having a well training or well awareness about it. So this is what the basic requirement of a data center is. We need compute, which we get from server, which we need, what we need is, we need network, which we get from network devices like router, switch, firewall. We need a storage, which we get from SAN or NAS. We need a cooling system. We can use maybe AC, we can use some proper fan. Then we need power supply. Maybe you have uninterrupted power supply there, you have another power source, rather than having only depending on the electricity. Maybe you can have your own generator, you can have your own UPS system and all. Then we need some monitoring software, like examples are written here. Then we need some rack to keep or hold these all devices within the data center. And then we need a skilled manpower. Next point we are going to talk about is how many types of data center are. So here you can see basically there are four types of data center are starting from tier 1, which is very basic level, going up to tier 4, which is very advanced level, or you can say like it is a largest type of data center. So the enterprise level organization, they generally develop or they have their tier 4 type of data center. Now here is some explanation of the rack. As I explained you about the data center has components inside of that, we have talked about the enclosure or rack. So here is some of the picture of a rack. We have a small rack, mid-size rack or bigger size rack. This rack size generally comes with the size, and that size or that size unit generally is having U. So rack unit is having the word called U. By U it is being represented, and generally 1 U is equal to 1.75 inches. So very simple, it means that for example if you are buying let's say that 48 U rack you are buying, so what will be the total size of this rack? So it is going to be 48 multiplied by 1.1.75. That will be the total size of the rack, because 1 U is 1.75 inches. So total if you have 48 U, that means it will be the calculation of this value 48 multiplied by 1.75. Generally when we talk about a server which you buy, it comes with the size of 2U also. Some of the server comes with the size of 3U also, some of comes with the 4U also. Same way if you talk about a router or switches or maybe a patch panel, they also have some size like 2U or 3U. So here is some examples are mentioned, like you have a 2U server here, 2U device here, maybe a patch panel or something. Here also you see 2U device patch panel is there. Then here we have some server. So this is a NAS or sandbox from Dell. So this is for 2U, this is for 4U. 4U means it is double of 2U. That means if you multiply 4 multiply by 1.75, total value will become the size of this particular server. This U which I am telling you know, that is about the height of the device, like meaning that if I talk about 4U, meaning that what is the length of this server in this way. So it is 4U. This size is 4U. This size of the server is or NAS is here 2U. So I'm talking about this size, meaning that from up to down when we talk about a rack server, it can be 2U, it can be 3U, it can be 4U, like that. And a general concept says that whenever you are shifting any device, like here you see some gap is there between this device and this device. So this device gap has to be there like 1U at least. That's a standard things mentioned there, that if you are keeping two devices in a rack, you should have at least 1U gap between them. So that's all about a rack. How does it look like? So physically from outside it is going to look like that. From inside the devices are going to be shifted like this. And now we have also understood what is the meaning of this U, how much the value of this U is, and if a device is of 2U, what does it mean? So I hope it's clear for all of you. Next point is form factor. When you are buying a computer, when you are looking for a computer, every computer is having a form factor. Even if you buy a normal desktop for your home use or for your office, there is also a form factor. Maybe you have heard about ATX, AT, micro ATX, mini ITX. So these are some of the form factor are. Form factor is nothing else. It tells you the details or a specification or brief of your size of the motherboard, as well as according to the size of motherboard, obviously your chassis size will be also bigger or smaller. So basically when we talk about a form factor, no, it talks about dimension of your motherboard, like how big it is, how big the length is, how big the width is. Second point is power supply type, which kind of power supply it uses. You may have heard about the power supply type like AT, ATX. So AT was having 12 pins there to provide the supply. ATX is having 20 or 24 pins. So on the basis of that, motherboard gets changed. Then location of mounting holes also, it difference. You see here three different pictures, and obviously you can assume how the mounting holes will be. Here you see one is mounting hole, then here there is no place because it is a small a bit. Then a number of onboard ports, or you can see the backside ports, like how many ports you have. Do you have the USB port? How many they are they having two USB port or four USB port? Is it having the PS2 port there or not? Is it having the serial port there or not? Is it going to have the VGA port, or is it going to have any other type of HDMI also? So on depending on those kind of things, there are very many number of form factors or types of motherboard are. So here are some example of it, like we have ATX, we have micro ATX, you can see a bit small than that, and then we have even mini ATX, that is even a smaller than that. Similarly, obviously when the motherboard size gets smaller, obviously the system case size is also going to be a smaller. So here is some of the tower case type are. We have a smallest HTPC, then we have a small form factor which is using mini ITX type of motherboard inside of it. We have mini tower which uses again ITX or MATX. Then we have mid size of tower, generally which we use for our home purpose. Generally these are the two type of computer which we use at our home, that is ATX or ATX or EATX. Then we have the super ultra tower. This is generally being used for the server motherboard and server computers. So here the size is also mentioned. It can be of 27 inches plus, it can be 22 to 27 inches, 17 to 21 inches, 14 to 16 inches. So that are some of the size of the box which you have, I mean cabinet size of the computer. Next point is server form factor. So generally server we are getting into three types according to their form factor, according to how do they look like, what kind of motherboard it uses, and how the adjustments are. On the basis of that, we are having three type of server. Rack mount server, this is the rack mount server. You can see these are the three server, 1 2 3. So each server is like a it is being holded on a rack, and it is going to be horizontal. Then the second type we have is tower case. Tower case is this one, which is like a vertical, the one which we generally have at our house or at our office as a normal computer. Those all are comes under the tower case. And then the third category we do have, that is blade server. So this is the picture of blade server computer. Blade server also available into two format, half and full. Half blade server is going to be occupying the full length of the rack. If you talk about the half is going to occupy only half of the rack when we talk about the width of rack, but full is going to occupy the full space in the rack. So what is good or bad about blade server is, obviously I'm going to explain all of this one by one slowly. So let me go to each one by one. So here first let's start with rack mount server. Here you see how the rack mount server looks like. This is one example of rack mount server. You see it is going to look like something which is in a horizontal format. Here you have, this is your front panel of this computer, and obviously that side is going to be back, and this is the length of this server, and this is the height of the server. That is going to be either 2U, either 3U, either 4U. So it looks like this is 2U server. 2U means, you understand, 2 multiplied by 1.75, that many inches, meaning that it is going to be approx 3.50 inches. So this is one example of rack mount server. Is generally why rack mount server has been designed, that this rack allow to vertically stack server in order to save a space, because generally a rack is something like this. This is, for example, a rack where you are going to have multiple server there. Maybe one server is here, second one is there, third is there, fourth is there. So what is happening, that you are saving the space a lot in your room, in your data center. Because if you use the maybe tower server, that will be occupying too much space, and there is no option to keep one server on the top of another one. So the better idea is to use the rack mount server, because here you have a rack, and in the rack you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, depending on the size of rack, how many number of server you can put inside of it. Second is blade server. So here, as I explained, blade server is having a kind of complete chassis where you can put multiple small server inside of it. This one you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These all are server inside of one blade server. So blade server are designed to save even more space when we compare with the rack mount server. And blade server is a server on a single card that can be mounted alongside other blade server in the blade chassis. So you generally have a blade chassis which is big in size. You first put that blade chassis in the rack or somewhere, and then inside of that you will be able to put multiple server inside of it. They always comes like a card connector. So that's all about the blade server. How does it look like and how does it works? Then the now we are going to talk about the server racks. When we buy a rack, what are the things are there inside of it? So this is one example of a rack. Is here we have the rack. So in the rack, what are the major things we have? Here you see there is a, in the middle of rack you are going to get a kind of a strip of iron that is called as a rails, where you have so many number of holes, and those holes allow you to hold or tie the servers there, so that you can shift here one server maybe like this, then you can put another server like this. So that way it is going to be actually the that's how it is going to have or hold multiple number of server inside of it. So this rack size can be between 8U to 48U any size, meaning that the smallest you can get in the market, that is 8U. So if you don't give the any space inside of it, you will be able to shift almost like 4 devices of 2U. But if you give some space, obviously the number will decrease. Then this is the depth of the rack. Rack depth can be 22 inch to 44 inches. That's the depth, maybe meaning that the distance in this way. That's the depth of the rack. Here is the front face of the rack, and here is the height of the rack. So height of the rack can be 48U to 8U. Then we have the side panels. This is the side panel. You can have a cover on it. There is a door, and the door will have obviously different type of locks. Maybe it can have a numeric lock where you just same like your suitcase or something. Then you may have some lock system also where you need a key to open or close it, and then it can also have maybe a sensor system to open and close it. So this is something I have just tried to explain about how rack looks like and what exactly inside it has. So again here it's something mentioned that this is the equipment are placed in the rack, and one rack unit is equal to 1.75 inches. A standard rack size are generally 42U or 48U. These are the standard rack size we have in the market. Next point here is when we talk about a full height rack cabinet, generally if you get a biggest rack cabinet, what are the options you may get there extra? So obviously it is going to have a specific monitoring module there inside of it. When you open, you will get a screen inside of it which can be open and close, or maybe you can have a KBM adapter. So KBM adapter is nothing else, K for keyboard, V for video, M for mouse. So that adapter can be connected on any number of computer here or servers here. Like maybe you have 4 server, and if you want to do some change on the number 2 server, so you connect that KVM adapter, and then you will be able to connect their keyboard, you will be able to connect their mouse, you will be able to connect their video devices, and you will be able to do changes. For example, you want to do maybe BIOS settings inside of it, or if you want to do any changes in the server from there itself, then you can use the KVM adapter there. Otherwise, once your basic settings are done on the server, generally the servers are being managed through the remote side. So you just need to have here the network cable connected, and you are controlling it from outside. Maybe you are sitting here with your laptop and you are going to control that server from there. So this type of full height rack cabinet may have something inside of it, like it will have a specific rack UPS, uninterrupted power supply. It will be having rack battery to provide the power to the UPS when power goes off. It will have the cabinet security lock there. It will have monitor module which will have a screen in it. It may have sound and light control module. Then it will have a smoke detector also inside of it, that if any wire get burns or any kind of a smoke gets generated inside of the rack, it will send an alarm to you. It will be a starting warning to you. Then it may have the these are some of the main modules are, and then it has comprehensive distributions modules. So this is how the basically one full height rack looks like. You can see down there is a battery going to be this battery will be providing power to the UPS when power goes off or something. Now we are going to talk about the transition, meaning that what has been the basic changes when we compare with the very old age to the mid age to the nowadays age. So when we talk about pre 98 or 2000, means before year 1998 or 2000, what kind of data center was being used, what kind of services was being offered. So here it is. Before 1998 or 2000, there was a traditional data center. Traditional data center means what? The meaning that it was holding something like, simply you have a data center. Inside of data center there was physical computers, where one physical computer, another physical computer, another physical computer. So as many number of physical computer data center was having, that many number of servers were found there, and it was offering the services to outsider client. That was the traditional data center. There was no concept of virtualization or anything. It was just a physical server being offering a service to any customer there. Then when we talk about pre 98 or 2000, there was a big concern, that was a cost. Why there was a problem of cost? Because here you see, when you have one single server, meaning that obviously you need to have there what are the things: processor, RAM, Windows Server, storage. So every one is a cost. For example, if you buy a processor of maybe Xeon, so that Xeon processor is obviously going to have a good cost, and you have to think about that which particular Xeon processor you should use, which will be offering you the exact service which you are looking for. Then you have to also think about the RAM, that how big the RAM you want to have in the physical server. So maybe if you want to have, let's say that 64 GB or maybe 32 GB RAM, that is again a cost for you. Then obviously every server needs a Windows Server license. Maybe you are using Windows Server 2008 or 2012 or 2016. Obviously that time there was not 16 or 12. So whatever Windows Server operating system was being used, the license payment was required. So obviously that was a cost. And then a storage, as many number of hard disk you have, and then for some hard disk for backup and everything, those all are the cost. Once you pay this all cost and you get one server ready with maybe a configuration of 32 GB RAM, maybe a operating system of Windows Server, then you have maybe a storage of, let's say that 1 terabyte, then you have processor, this is Xeon. And after this all, what if you are just running maybe a single service on it? Maybe you are just making it as a DHCP server. So do you think that a single DHCP server is consuming all your resource? Will it be consuming your 32 GB space of RAM? Do you think it is going to occupy your all storage 1 terabyte? Do you think that processor which you have put it inside is fully occupied or fully consumed? If yes, then okay. But if not, that means you are just wasting your money. You have put a lot of cost on the server, but that server is having not that much utilization. That was a big challenge when we talk about a traditional data center, because there was no any concept of any kind of virtualization there. Whatever a single server you have, whatever resources you have there, you are going to use them as a single instance. You are going to use them as a single server only. You have no choice to subdivide it. That's why in from 2000 till 2020 the new concept came where we started using virtualization or virtualized data center. So now what has changed? What was the major change there? That in this scenario, virtualization came in the market, especially the leading company was VMware who was providing virtualization. So they introduced virtualization and it was helping us to utilize much more in a right way to our resources. Whatever server you buy, whatever resource you buy, you will be able to consume them in a right way because you have virtualization concept there. Let me explain you with something here. For example, you get a one host machine or one server, physical server, and on the top of that you may be running 3 or 4 virtual machine. So meaning that now you are having 3 or 4 different instance, and those instance is going to consume your resources. Let me explain you graphically. So we have one host machine, that is a one physical server. You buy a one physical computer which has a cost of RAM, which has a cost of processor, which has a cost of storage. On the top of that, now we are running some virtual machines. 1, 2, 3. These all are the virtual machines. So now how many instances I am going to get? 3 different instances. And these 3 different instances may run 3 different services. Maybe one server I am using for file server, one server I am using for DHCP server, one server I am separately using for Active Directory or plus DNS. So now this time this host machine resources, whatever it has, maybe it has the same processor, same RAM, same storage. At least this time it is going to be properly utilized because we are running now 3 server, 3 instance on it, and we can dedicate, maybe I have given this computer let's say that 4 GB RAM, maybe this computer I have given 8 GB RAM, maybe this computer I have given 4 GB RAM, like that. So now this time at least the utilization will be a bit better compared to the previous condition. So now what is happening? Now if a question that server is it fully utilized, so answer is yes, somehow it is being fully utilized. So there are some question that is the server easy to manage? So of course it will be easy to manage, no problem, you will be able to handle it because on the same host machine you have multiple virtual machine and you are controlling them by sitting in front of the host machine. Second question comes that is it provide self service for the end user? No, that's not possible. Here you need a specific administrator working in your data center which will be doing this all tasks like creating virtual machine, deleting virtual machine, adding resources to any of the virtual machine. Those tasks will be done by the administrator who is working at your data center. So that's why if the question comes that is it providing a self service for end user, answer will be no. Here the end user, the customer will not be able to do any customization on their virtual machine. Meaning that, for example, I have 3 server running, maybe one server I give it to one client, another server I gave it to another client, another server I gave it to another client. So this client person, those who are accessing this server, are they having a self service? Will they be able to add here RAM size? Maybe right now it is 4 GB. Can they make it 5 GB tomorrow by themselves? Can they add the storage there? So these things, this function was not possible when we talk about the virtualization or virtualized data center. Now let's have some more information about it. So the major company in virtualization race are who are the major company who deals about the virtualization platform, who provide the virtualization platform. So those 3 major companies are, first is Microsoft, who was having a product like System Center and Hyper-V as a hypervisor. So Hyper-V was running on the host machine which was allowing you to create virtual machines on it, and then there was a product called System Center which was having so many products inside of it like System Center Configuration Manager, System Center Virtual Machine Manager, System Center Operation Manager, System Center Application Control, End Protection, then we have System Center Data Protection Management. So those all products was a part of System Center which was helping or which is helping to control these all virtual machine or your data center. Second leading company was VMware, or it is still VMware, second company who provides the virtualization. So VMware was having product like vSphere, where we have the ESXi as a hypervisor, and then we have vSphere client and some other kind of tools to manage it. Then there was a name called vCloud Director. This was providing a private cloud management from the VMware. Here from Microsoft, System Center is the one product or a software which allowed to manage the private cloud, where we in the VMware, vCloud Director is the software which was allowing to, or which allow you to manage the private cloud. And then of course the third company is Citrix, which provide the products like Zen Server, Zen Desktop. So these are the major three companies who are in the lead of virtualization race. Now I'm going to talk about from 2008 up to till today. We are having now cloud data center. So before it was traditional data center. From 2000 till 2012 we were using virtualization or virtualized data center. Now what we have is cloud data center. This cloud term has come from this year 2008 and later on. So what does it do? So we have so many different type of cloud data center now. We have like private cloud, we have public cloud, we have hybrid cloud, we have community cloud. So these are some of the type of clouds are which we will be discussing in the upcoming video, in upcoming part of this training. So this was something about the transition, meaning that what are the basic changes has been when we talk about the year wise, like pre 1998 or 2000, how was the situation, which kind of data center we were having. Then between 2000 to 2012, what kind of data center was being used. It was using virtualization, and who was the main leading company, or who is the main leading company in virtualization nowadays also. Those are Microsoft, VMware, Citrix. Then now from 2008 we are having cloud data center, which is having some type like private cloud, public, hybrid and community cloud. So that was all about in this particular part, which is part 1, which was just we have finished with some foundation knowledge of it. So now it's time to have some question and answer. I would like to have some question here on the screen, and I will ask you all, I will request you all to answer these all question just to check your own knowledge, that how much information you have grabbed from this particular video, from this particular part of this training. So first question to you all goes to that, what will be the total size of 10 rack unit? So answer is very simple. I hope you have already understood which answer is going to be right. Simply one rack unit represented by U, and we have discussed already what's the value of U each. So simply you multiply that value with the 10, and that will be the right answer here. Next question comes that what is IPMI stand for? I have already discussed in this video what is IPMI is. It is a software which works on server to identify or to manage or to replace any of the hardware parts like RAM or maybe any specific things running on your computer, which one is faulty, which one need to be replaced, something like that. So what is the full name of IPMI is? That's the question. Please write it down. Then the third question goes that which adapter do we use to do the BIOS setup in any server of rack? I have given you the name of it. Then the fourth question is, who are the main 3 companies in the virtualization range? I hope you already know it. And then the fifth question is private cloud software name, why VMware? So I have given you the name. Kindly put this all answer below so that at least we can continue, we can be ready for the next part of the training. So I would like to now thanks you all for watching this video, and I hope this video was informative for all of you. Thanks a lot.